Okay, so today we're going to review something exciting, interesting. It's going to be sort of a long tutorial, but we're going to basically open up the hood and look at how the engine actually works. So what we're trying to do here is imitate a behavior that's already available for the opportunity to contacts relationship. And what I mean by that is that we can assign a contact to an opportunity, and we can decide what that contact's role is going to be for that specific opportunity. So that's very important, is that for good opportunity, when it comes to another contact, the role is going to be primary decision, right? So if we go to another opportunity, which is great instead of good, and we take a look at the exact same contact, the role is going to be other. So you can see what happened here is basically it's the same exact contact, same different opportunity, and the role is different. So actually this behavior does not, cannot be reproduced out of the box with the current setup, which is unfortunate. And this can be useful in many different cases. So what we're going to do is basically review how we can add two fields, in this case a date start and a date end, to a relationship. So the fact that you're seeing right now contacts and opportunities means that there is a relationship between the two. And in that standard table we're going to have like the ID of the relationship, we're going to have the ID of the opportunity, the ID of the contact, which links them together. The date deleted, I think, field is in there also. And it has the role field in that relationship table, right? So this is based on a tutorial created by a gentleman named Jason Eggers, which was originally posted on developer.sugarcrm.com. There's some modifications that I did in terms of the steps to follow. There's some just small stuff that needed to be fixed for the latest setup of suiteCRM, and it should also work for the it will also work for the SugarCRM Community Edition. So I have this Google Doc here, which I'm going to post in the comment section that you can follow. It's a step-by-step process, and in this tutorial we're just going to be looking at the exact steps. We're going to be reproducing them and lightly touching on what is actually happening on the background. If we review everything in detail, it's going to be a 10-hour tutorial. So, but we are going to basically lightly explain what's going on here. So the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add the columns that I mentioned before. So the date start and the date end to the relationship table. And the way that we do it is we're going to open up the metadata accounts underscore contacts metadata file, which we'll do right now. And I apologize in advance about the constant coughing. There's a bit of a cold, so sorry about that. So metadata here, and then it's going to be the account contacts metadata.php. Contacts. Going to open it up. And if we look at the notes here, it says that this has to be done in the metadata version instead of the custom metadata. So it's done because the processing of the metadata does not give precedence to the custom metadata version. So that means that we're really doing it inside the metadata, which is not really upgrade safe, but we have no choice. These are like built-in modules, so we have to do it in this specific location and not custom metadata. We're just going to grab this here, and we're going to add it into the fields section. So here we're in the fields array. So we're just going to go ahead and add it here. So that is done. Now we're going to do rebuild and repair. So once we click on the repair and rebuild, at the very bottom of the page, it's going to prompt us about the creation of the two new columns. So account contacts table is going to have the column date start and date end also with the type date. We're going to say yes, obviously add those tables, and that step is done. So as mentioned before, we're adding the to a table called accounts contacts, which basically allows us to relate two records together, the accounts and the contacts. So that's the ID of the actual relationship. the contact ID, the account ID, so those two are going to be connected, obviously. The date modified, so those are the standard ones. Deleted is a standard one, and we added date start and date end with the type date. So let's continue with the tutorial. We're going to mark this done, done, done. So that's basically just the steps that we performed here. And the next step is we're going to copy. The next step is actually creating the edit screen. So what I mean by that is when we were in the previous page here, when we were clicking the edit here, this is the edit screen. This is what it looks like. So we're going to be creating the files necessary for that edit screen to be available. And the way that we do it is we copy the following files. So contact opportunity relationship edit, save opportunity relationship, contact opportunity relationship edit.html, which is the template file, which is going to display us the stuff that's here. And let's do it, and then I'll come back. Okay, so now that the files are copied, it says that we need to replace all occurrences of the contact opportunity with contact account. And that concerns the file names also. So when we're copying the files, we just simply need to replace where it says contact opportunity with contact account. So let's do it for all the files. And when it's done for all the file names, we must also do it for the occurrences of contact opportunity, which is to be replaced with contact account. And you don't need my tutorial to know how to do find and replace, but that's what we're going to basically do for all of the 4 files there. So let's do it. Okay, so now that that part is done, we're going to go to the contact account relationship edit.php. So this file here, and we're going to add the following to the top. So so it should be here. We're going to replace it, so it's going to point to the new action, and then we're going to replace this part as well, which is invoking the template file. So it's going to be right around here. So the template, we're going to use a new template file. So that part is done. Right now we're going to do the same for the save opportunity contact relationship. So we're grabbing that same header file here, and we're putting it here. Okay, so that part is also done. Right now we're going to open up the contact account relationship.php file and remove all mentions of the opportunity and contact role fields and include our account and date start end fields instead. So we're going to grab this, all of this stuff here, open up the contact account relationship.php file, and we're going to replace all of the stuff that's here. So here we basically specify the object names. This is going to be like the bean called contact account relationship, the table of that, basically of that bean, and then we're specifying the stored fields and the column fields also. And when we're modifying the date start date and end date, we're modifying the bean values, right? So next thing that we're going to do is modify the field definitions. So every the beans, they have field definitions, right? And we're going to take this whole part here, remove it, and replace it with a neat looking array like so. So that part is done as well. So then we're in the fill in additional details function for in the opportunity section. So that's important. So when we go here, we have 2 sections. The first section is the contact section here. That's fine, we'll leave it alone, but it's the opportunity section that we need to replace. So we'll go like this and we replace it, and that's going to allow us to get the name of the account by looking, by basically performing a query, right? So we're doing a query here and a query here, and we'll come back to that mention of query. So that part is done. Next, we're going to add the start and end dates to the sub panel. and alter the edit button so that it goes to the edit relationship screen. And it basically tells us like, go ahead and see how the opportunities does it. So this is a good little exercise. Is we're going to go to the modules, opportunities, metadata, subpanel defs. And once inside that file, it says, notice that contact subpanel uses the for opportunities subpanel, right? As the subpanel name. So if we go to the contacts section here, you can see that it uses the subpanel name as for opportunities. So where is that for opportunities stored? Like, where is additional information about this for opportunities subpanel? And it's actually located in the modules, contacts, metadata, subpanels, for opportunities.php. So let's open it up and see. By the way, notice since we're talking about the contacts module, right? We need to go to the contacts module folder, not the opportunities module folder. So contacts, metadata, subpanels, and here it is. So for opportunities.php. So we can see here that we have the opportunity role fields, query only, opportunity role ID, query only. And basically indicates that the query only is used to, this information is going to be used to create a query, which is going to allow us to populate the subpanel section with the right data. So what I mean by that is if we look at the subpanel, here it's going to have some information. So we're going to use that query, we're going to use that account ID information. I mean, sorry, the that account contact ID. No, that's not it. The we'll see it further down the line, not as the example. I mean, sorry, I misspoke. So I thought we were looking at a different stage here. Yeah. So this is basically going to be used in the query to find out what information should be displayed. And one of the query examples that we saw above was when we're querying it with select name from accounts where ID equals this account ID. So for example, this account ID is used in the query, right? So basically we're using it, we're specifying query only, so it's going to help us to pass the relationship fields through to the subpanel. Okay, anyway, so let's go back away from the detour, and we're basically looking at how it's currently set up. So we're going to mark it as done. We're just looking at how it's currently set up. And right now, so the goal is to add the start and end dates to the contact subpanel of the account record. So that may be a bit confusing. So basically, to make sure 1000% that we understand what's happening, once we're in the accounts, in an accounts record, we're going to have the contacts subpanel. So we need to add the start and end date here to the subpanel. And so the way that we do it is we need to find out which subpanel layout to alter. So we're going to open up this file here, which is in modules, accounts, metadata, subpanel defs. And we're going to look in the contacts subpanel section, right? So a bit like how we did before. And we see that the contacts subpanel uses the subpanel name for accounts, right? So now we're going to copy that subpanel definition file, which is here, and we're going to put it in custom modules, contacts, metadata, subpanels folder. So I copied that file, and then here we need to create a directory called subpanels, and then in that directory we're going to paste the actual file for accounts. So that part is done. And now we're going to change the edit button definition. So if we, when we open up this file, we have the edit button that is here. So it basically tells the system what happens when we click on the edit button. So we're going to take it from here, paste it here. There we go. And if you notice, it says that we have the widget class, which is subpanel edit account contact button. So that's the class that actually, a widget class that's going to define the edit button behavior, right? So right now we're just telling it, okay, so the edit button is going to use this widget class, and we're going to need to create this widget class further down the line. So above the widget class, that edit button widget class definition, we're going to put our actual fields. So we're going to copy it. We're going to put them here. And it says, notice the account contact ID. So this tells Sugar to send over additional info to the widget. We need to set up the field to get the contact ID to pass over. So what we mean by that is the contact account ID will need to be present. So basically, once we're going to have the edit button here, we're going to be editing a contact, right? So we basically need to get that contact ID in order to pass it through to the widget. So it will all make sense in a second, but what that means is that widget here is going to be basically editing that specific contact ID. So when we click on it, on the bottom left hand side of the screen, we'll see the record ID, and in order to see it, we need to pass it to that edit button, let's just say. So that part is done. So right now we're going to create a custom var.devs file, which is going to be called this. It can be called anything you want, but in this case we'll say that that's the name. And we're going to give it the following, we're going to paste the following content into the file. So let's do the quick repair here. And we talked about the beans before the objects. So the relationship field helps map the query result to the contact account relationship bean. So we mean those relationship fields here. And so we're going to be modifying the account contact account relationship bean, right? We're going to be modifying this bean's start date and end date. And we're basically adding those fields to that bean using var.devs, which was done here. So it says now we need to create our own widget class based on the subpanel edit role button class. So let's copy the following file here into the following location and rename it to this. And as always, if you don't have that folder, you need to create that folder. So in my case, I didn't have the generic Sugar widgets and I created them. So right now we have that file. We're going to rename the class which is inside called Sugar widget subpanel edit role button to Sugar widget subpanel edit account contact button. So this stuff gets renamed here. And now we're going to edit the following two lines. We're going to replace this and this line with the following. So just two words on that is the action. So the action is basically what happens when you scroll over and click on that button here. That's the action. And right now, if we look at the bottom left, you can see that the action says action equals contact opportunity relationship edit, and we're changing it to contact account relationship edit. And the action is basically displaying the edit screen. So showing the edit screen is considered the action. And the layout definition for that action, what needs to be actually shown is what needs to be shown in, as far as the account ID. So when we scroll over here on the bottom left hand side, we'll see the record ID. It's going to be coming from this field. Hence why we were creating that the field in var.devs, right? So here it is. That step is done. Now it just says open an account record and then look at the contacts subpanel. So let's open up an account and look at the contact subpanel, and we can see here the we're missing the labels, so which are super easy to add by basically creating the following file here. Just need to create a file, and we're going to put the definitions for those labels. What? Word count. Okay, this is done. Okay, so that's great. And right now, if we do repair and rebuild and refresh, we'll see everything there being properly displayed instead of these labels. Just like so, start date and end date labels are shown. So this is good, it's coming together, but that part is done. So for a contact in the subpanel, click the edit button. We have the edit screen. There is work to be done yet. So when we look at that screen here, this is what we've been talking about all along, about setting up those custom widgets, etc., is if we scroll over the edit button right now, on the bottom left hand side, we're going to see the new action, which is contact account relationship edit, and the record ID. So that's the record ID of that contact. So essentially contact ID, right? So that's confirmed. And if you're not seeing the record ID, it means something was done incorrectly in the previous steps. So it needs to be redone. Right now we're going to edit the actual template itself. So the template itself deals with this edit screen here. We want to change the way this looks. So we want to change the way basically this looks. You can ignore the warnings. It's on my debug section, the way that it's been set up. It's to show everything. So this needs to change. We don't want to have those select buttons here because we don't want to be able to change the assigned relationship, which is going to cause us headaches. And these things here are going to become date pickers. So we can pick a date. And the role thing here, we just want to get rid of it also. And the way that it's done is by basically swapping some code HTML markup snippets. So this part here becomes this inside contact account relationship edit.html. So we're going to swap this, and you can see inside the file, easiest to identify it is that we're looking at the two columns. So this first column and the second column, we're just removing all of that good stuff here, and we're replacing it with this. Okay, so that I talked about that before. We're going to now edit the PHP file. We're going to change the opportunity name and opportunity ID to the account name and account ID. So it's this part here, account name and account ID. Oops. That's wrong. So this stuff here. So once again, once we're here, you see the opportunity name and all of that stuff where we're removing it and we're putting this instead account. Also going to change the XTPL. So the stuff related to the template, we're going to swap this with this. So this should be here on the bottom, I believe, like so. We're going to replace it. And we're going to remove this contact role focus thing. That's no longer needed. So refresh the edit screen and account name now shows. So let's refresh it and see what this means. So this should now become account name. Okay, there we go. That's the account name. Big account. Now let's go back. Right now we're going to go back to the account relationship edit.html and modify the other part, which is this one. So once again, we're going to grab these two columns here, and we're going to replace them with these definitions. So we can see it live on the screen once that is done. So basically this part here is going to change. As you can see, it's been changed. There's no longer the select button either. And we want to fix the title of on the top of the page. So the title that appears here, we want it to be different. So we're basically just doing this. We're changing inside the account relationship edit.php. We're swapping the following. Okay, so we're changing this to this. So OP name, we want to show account name instead. And we're changing this to this. Like so. So this whole part here, mod string, so that's changed. And the title bar should change. So once that is changed here, let's refresh, and so this stuff here is going to be different. Oh, sorry, I showed you a different, it's not this that's going to change, it's this that's going to change. So let's refresh, and it's different. So let's continue on. So basically we're almost there. So time to fix the title at the top of the page, that is done. Now add the start date and end date. Edit the contact account relationship edit.html. So we're going to add the actual date pickers. So it's this part here inside the HTML template. Which is going to be replaced with all of this here. So the easiest, once again, is instead of going for the column, we're going to go for the whole row. So just that whole row here, right? Can go ahead and replace it. In the same file right below the closing tag, we're going to add this script. So it's going to allow for the calendar pop-up to work correctly. So in this section here, right below the form, we're going to add the following JavaScript. Now we're going to edit the contact account relationship edit.php and remove the following code that references the contact role ID. So we're just basically doing a cleanup. We're removing this and we're replacing it with this. And what that's going to do is we can see it here on that page. Let's see what it looks like now. See, we have that little date picker here. We're going to add some stuff. So let's find this inside the same .php file. So it's basically this part here, right? We're going to replace it with all of this here. And while in this file, remove the following two blocks of code. So we're going to remove this and this. So we're going to remove this, and then we're going to remove this new JavaScript stuff here. So all of this stuff gets removed. And we're done. So if we look at the edit screen now, what it looks like, we can see that we have those the date format. We can choose our dates. So as an experiment, let's try to pick the date from the 1st to the 2nd. Another account related to another contact related to the big account we're going to save. And if we look at that, please ignore the warning. As mentioned, just for debugging purposes, it's there. We can see that it's the 1st to the 2nd. But if we add another account to another contact to a different account, we're going to be able to choose an independent start and end dates. If you found the video at all helpful and you don't mind leaving a like, I would appreciate it. And if you would like to subscribe, I invite you to do so, because I'll be making more of these videos in the future. Thank you for sticking with me today throughout this whole tutorial. I hope it was useful, and have an excellent day. Thank you.